Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Sonic 2006, same team as in the last two videos. It's Heavy Sigh, it's ThornBrain. This time we would have time for a little bit more introduction, but let's cut to the chase. It's Aquatic base, it's boring as shit, I'm sorry.
That was fresh.
Of course, Aquatic base is the one that's full of the fire monsters.
Oh, sure, I mean they are taking over. It's Iblis. Hey, there is another set of enemies spawned behind us. How will I deal with them? Alright. It's easy. I don't know what hit me.
This was a level where I started thinking, why did you do this? And that it was with those weird metal balls. Why are they there?
It's probably because they were a physics thing.
Yeah, I think they're meant to be like ammunition for you, but it's much easier to just, you know, throw the enemies themselves. The thing is, at this point in the normal mode, you don't have the Psycho Slam yet, but I mean, in hard mode, obviously you would be very stupid to do a hard mode immediately after the normal mode, unless you're like super into the game. So obviously we are dealing with fully upgraded characters here. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, this room was a lot of fun when we did it with Shadow in his story, and now we're just doing it again with Shadow in Silver's story, so it's not much changed.
Better appreciate it.
It's something that's only kind of
Shadow
fun.
now. I'm sorry?
Well, it's one of those things where, like, there is a lot of things with your comment earlier, before you were talking about how they only had, like, one version of the level. I think that actually kind of explains a lot of the stuff where they're just shit-witching characters like this. Everyone just had, like, one version of the level that was made for them.
Yeah, it's extremely possible in
For
this sense.
everyone, I should say, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, we want to have this kind of interconnectivity, so we have a Shadow level anyway, so let's just plop this part down here. So there is definitely like interconnection between the people making the levels for the different characters and so on. Again, it's wrong to think probably that every single level design is working on the same levels at the same time. Like, that's not how game development works. But at some point they were surely talking to each other, as much as time permitted. Anyway, this is still easy, you know, just Psycho Slam everything.
Some days
Unless-
I kind of wonder if some of Silver's moves are, like, made later in development when they realized just how difficult it was to control them. Because, like, the Psycho Slam just kind of turns everything off. Like, you don't actually have to deal with half the enemies.
Yeah, it's brutally overpowered for sure, and I do think, yes, that they overtuned it probably in response to, like, most of the other stuff doesn't quite work, so
Yeah.
let's err on the side of caution, it's still a kid's game.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing wrong with that, like, it's fine if things are not brutally difficult, but I think this is kind of...
Speaking of brutally difficult, the giant rock-throwing monster doesn't actually aim at you.
Yeah, speaking of difficult, you can still just skip this part. No, I'm not interested in finding out what's on the other side, but hey, there is more dudes spawning here now, so that's cool.
That part was definitely designed for Sonic. He's not smart enough to see that.
Absolutely, and I think like this part played by Tails, I think they actually have more of a barrier there, so it's a bit weird. I think at some point they caught that you can just go through there, but not in this version of the level, so they forgot to fix it for Silver or something. It's really bizarre. Or was it Shadow who can't do it? I don't know. I think... Goodbye. I think Shadow is fixed so that he has to actually go around. Unless, of course, you take damage and walk on the solid lasers.
Solid laser.
Yeah.
Solid laser.
God, it never ceases
Oh.
to get me how weightless everything is.
Yeah.
The giant rock balls just bounce like spongy balls. Those things ping-pong all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, that's just Havoc physics, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll take time just in general for video games to catch up. Should they have used the technology when it's obviously this imperfect?
Or at least in a way that's this, not well put together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Sonic Team.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess it's just one of those things, just looking at like how Silver's whole gameplay works. Like, you'd think they'd jump on the chance to just make, like, a smaller level if it's mostly going to be him. But instead, like, there's just these enormous areas that have nothing going on in them, like this. Where you're just walking on a giant ball in a massive room, but nothing's really happening with it.
Well, the thing is, making a well-crafted level where every single part of the level is fun takes a lot of time. Like, we are well aware that this is basically a prototype version. All of this game is a prototype version. So if this was a well-crafted game with all the time in the world, they probably would have been playtesting this and were like, you know what, this actually sucks shit, we're deleting everything and making something new, or not, you know?
Well, it's mostly that I'm just thinking, like, with Silver in particular, because he's much slower than Sonic, you can just give him smaller levels that are more dense, but instead it's just really just Sonic's levels, but now you're playing as a guy who can only really block.
Yeah, that's a fundamental issue here.
Like, I think, honestly, as long as Sonic 06 was Sonic 06, even if you gave it all the time in the world, it would still not really work. Like, it wouldn't be as buggy or glitchy, but I think the main problem of the game would still be there.
I mean, it's possible that at some point, if you give the game enough time and say, okay, maybe these people making it are actually talented and all of the faults the game has is just because of the development. Let's be like super generous here, because I don't know them personally, and I don't know if they are the same people who made like an excellent Unleashed level just a few years later. But if given enough time, they could just say, you know what, this level doesn't work for Silver, let's give him... See, this is stun, by the way, stun impact, just saw that.
Oh yeah.
Let's give him an entirely new level, because they did that. They gave Silver an entirely new level, which is Tropical Jungle, compared to Sonic's Tropical Jungle, where at some point they must have been like, you know, Silver can't do the vine swing and grind parts upstairs in the canopy, but he can do a slow exploration on Turtleback on a very dense level, which is a good level, apart from that one part which everybody hates and which I pointed out all the time. And so it's possible, but they didn't do it for Aquatic Base, either because they didn't realize that it's an issue, or they did and didn't have the time for it.
Yeah.
So again, I'm defending them, yeah. Absolutely. They can do it. That has happened in 2006.
Yeah, the thing about bad Sonic games for me is I never blame the actual development team. I always blame the executives. Failure starts at the top with Sonic.
1000%.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can also see it with Heroes. Like, I think Heroes is better than most people give it credit for. There are a lot of things to have fun with in Heroes, like in 2006, if you understand the game and play it like it wants to be played. I'm not doing a Heroes Let's Play anytime soon, by the way.
Well, with Heroes, the issue is of how squirrely it is not making for a great first experience, as well as all the very obviously reused levels, but, I mean, it almost killed a guy, so I can't feel, like, bad about it.
Exactly, that's
Yeah,
one
Takashi
thing.
Iizuka lost like 20 pounds.
Yeah, the level reuse, again, is probably because they just didn't have enough time to craft unique levels for the other characters. Which makes sense in a team with like 12 people in it.
Yeah.
I feel like it was mostly... I might have this wrong, but I know Sonic Adventure 2 was made on just a very small team, and maybe Sonic Heroes, the idea was, well, like, you use less of the budget, so you get less budget, and then that ended up biting them in the ass the third time around.
I'm also working in a university, that's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Well, I actually ended up researching a lot of Sonic Heroes and for an LP, and then the main reason seemed to be that they basically wanted it to come out for, like, Sonic's 15th anniversary, or not 15th, 10th. And then essentially it just sort of fell apart as it went. Like, one guy got sick, and then for some reason they never hired a new guy to replace him. And, like, half the team was across the planet from each other, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's also like what they actually want the game to be versus what resources they are willing to put into that idea is wildly mismatched. because this is an epic game from the scope of it. Like a very complicated time travel plot. You have 3 characters with a whole story each and a final story tying it all together. You have all those hard mode versions and so on. There is tons of content in this, and you need the resources for that. You can't do this kind of game on a shoestring budget with a tiny team. You can do a game like, let's say, Sonic Mania or something, which is highly focused, linear, one campaign with some extra characters, sure, and bonuses and so on. But that's you can do that on a smaller scope. And there it's probably like, okay, do we want to have some extra bonus levels? Do we want to have like these collectibles in the various different Blue Sphere bonus levels? That's something you do in the end if you do have time. Whereas everything in 2006 we've seen here, that is all part of the central plan of what they wanted the game to be, and that doesn't work if you don't have the time and the manpower. Anyway, that was a level. I skipped the second ball part again. It's probably obvious that I do not care for this at all.
Perfect. You weren't kidding about how much extra points you get in this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like, go through there, kill a bunch of enemies that are in the way. It's mandatory anyway. Just don't dawdle and you'll be fine, because you get a lot of gifted points just from the pillars that destroy a bunch of enemies all at once, even ones that haven't spawned yet. Thanks a lot for your attention.